Hey guys, I'm Scott Brown, the developer for the game Journey for the Crown, and this is my 25th devlog. Welcome back, everybody. In our last devlog, we were going over some of the stuff we added in the Necromancer lair. I hadn't added enemies yet, so that was the first thing I wanted to bring up. We added a whole bunch of spiders, got different colors and sizes, a whole little section just made for them inside the Necromancer lair. As well, we also added some goblins, which are situated right next to the spiders, and then a whole bunch of cultists I ended up adding. These ones will have an array of different abilities. They're going to be quite difficult to beat. For the cultists, I ended up doing a little bit of painting, which is always quite fun. I ended up doing a new robe and some wands, even some daggers as well for these new cultist people. I also wanted to make sure that I could have them as weapons for the game so I can drop them, so I ended up doing that as well. Now, as I was putting all these enemies together, it was just kind of annoying me that enemies didn't really move until you started combat with them. So I designed this pathing system for them and built it right into their enemy mechanics. And as you can see here, this troll is just kind of walking up and down the path here. I wanted him to kind of parole the area. And this simple little change added so much life to the game. I'm amazed I kept up for so long not adding it, but here we are here. You can kind of see everything is brought to life. I thought it's such a silly thing that I overlooked for so long, but once I added it in there, I was just like, damn, this changed things so much. I'm really happy with the change. It's one of those things that when you're a game developer, you could be highly resistant of a certain change just because it wasn't the initial design flow, but as I revisit things, I often change my mind, and, it's for the best. Now, with that being done, I also went and plugged in a whole bunch of the other enemies in here, and you can see me kind of running around, seeing all the different effects. You can even see the stealth mechanic that we added in our last devlog, so if you want to see that, go check that one out. And as I was doing this, I noticed one issue. Certain enemies can see through walls, and I really didn't plan for this. I'm surprised I messed it up, but that's something we had to work on, so it was actually not as hard as you would think. In the appropriate area, I just added this new little segment of reading character colliders, and so I added my stealth character here behind the wall and just unstealthed them just to see if it was working, and sure enough, it is working just fine, and as I just come around the corner, the two guys do pounce on me, so it's working perfectly. And it also combinations well with all the other mechanics like stealth and that sort of stuff. So really cool change. Two more little interesting things that I made was traps. And I wanted it to tie into the disarm function that I actually have as a stat in the game. It didn't do anything yet. It was kind of baked into the Choose Your Own Adventure dialogue system. But now I have interactable objects that can be triggered through it. And it looks at your disarm rate and that sort of stuff and makes decisions on it. Now, with that same idea, I also decided to use traps as a way of opening doors too. They weren't just like hurting you. So here I had just a little switch there that it ended up creating a disaster nearby, but it also opens a door as well. So I got a lot of little ideas I'm going to use with that, and I had to make sure that the door also chopped into the pathing system, so there was a lot of elements that were in a factor in putting that together, but it looks pretty cool too. One idea of the switch I thought would be pretty cool was one of the rooms here that has these elementals that are being tested on. So I devised a little lever that you push, and if you push it, they end up coming out and attacking you. So here it is here. I thought that was really neat. Now, with all this scene done, I did have to do a little bit of the cleanup stuff. This might look a little bit primitive, but for blocking spells, going through walls, and enemies seeing you, I add just very basic Unity blocks. So they're just going to be end up just like colliders, really, right? Like box colliders, very primitive stuff. And it is a bit of a tedious task, but it's much better than adding colliders to skin mesh renderers. Like these walls that you're seeing that I'm covering, they're quite detailed. I wouldn't want to add a mesh with that detail on it. So what I end up doing is I just make these very primitive blocks and I superimpose them over top. And right now you can see them, but what I'll end up doing is removing the mesh off of it and leaving the collider. And it does a fantastic way of blocking spells from going through. It works perfectly in the end. All I have to do is make sure that I cover areas that you can't reach through. So like corners like that where there's like an L shape, you'd be able to cast through there. But in certain areas, it's not really necessary. In my last devlog, I worked on some dinosaurs for a bit. I decided to add a whole bunch more, and while I was doing it, I realized that certain dinosaurs probably wouldn't just attack anybody. So I ended up designing a new script that goes into the enemy AI that allows them to be passive. So when you walk by them, they won't necessarily jump you anymore. And you'll get the telltale sign with the red circle versus the kind of yellowy, amberish colored circle. That basically tells you you could still attack them. You just won't get attacked by them if you walk by. So here they are, kind of just running around with their newly designed wandering patrol AI. And pretty cool stuff. I was really happy with this change. It is a big change in terms of the way the game works. A lot of NPCs are going to have to be changed up now, but really neat. I'm glad I did this change. Now moving along, I ended up going to the 3rd floor, which is a new scene. It's the top of the Necromancer layer. Basically, this is where you're going to fight him. I designed this little like platform area, so it's just going to be like just a fighting ground with a large bridge that leads to it. I wanted it to have those canyon-esque kind of looking things around it, so I ended up doing a lot of these rock formations around it, and then I'll just position a whole bunch of crystals and that sort of stuff. I'm going to have some nice tile flooring in here, like you see there in the middle, and then I'm going to put his like giant throne there and set it all up. I wanted his throne to have like a platform on it, so I devised these little spiky looking columns that I surrounded it, and I also took some of the crystals and I started forming them in the back because I really wanted it to look like he was tapping into the world stone, and that's kind of the idea based into the story. So here is a nice little look of it so far. I wanted to also make some pillars because large open areas kind of look boring. Pillars are a great way of adding a little bit of detail, so I designed a pillar using some of the pieces that I've already made before. So I wanted to keep it the same kind of theme. Now with pillars, because they're large and tall, you have to basically make 2 versions in my game. One that's like a shortened version, so when you walk around the backside of it, I can hide it. And I'll hide the tall version and then show you this smaller little stubby version. So just taking a look here at the pillars, it does add quite a bit of detail. I even added some skeletons, like big bundles, and some of those lights in the brazier bowls along the edge, so I thought that was really cool. I really started getting into the fun stuff here. I ended up making a bit of a dialogue for the Necromancer that you would have, and I also gave you a few different endings that you could possibly do. One of them being where you end up killing yourself, which I always thought was kind of cute. Anyways, part of the fighting mechanic, which was where all the fun stuff happens, is I ended up making this kind of like tiled system where I wanted the tiles to look like they're rising out of the ground and creating havoc. So I ended up devising that together with a whole bunch of little animations and stuff like that. And then I got a little carried away with all these different ideas where there'd be like certain areas would be healing you and other areas would be hurting you. So it's a matter of moving yourself around and your group members to find different areas. Now, this is not what the final battle looks like. I've kind of put together the Necromancer right now, but these aren't his abilities. I just gave him some basic stuff. Now moving on, I added respawning enemies to the game. I don't know if I mentioned it in one of my earlier devlogs, but essentially when you kill somebody, they basically have a timer to them when they can respawn. Now this applies to bosses and even the end game. So when you kill the Necromancer, he's going to respawn. So just watch here. I reset this guy to about like 10 seconds. It's not what you're going to see truly in game. You'll probably see like a day respawn on this fella, and then he repops and you can experience that entire adventure all over again. That's going to work on pretty much everything in the game unless I deem that it just can't be done that way. There might be a few instances like that, especially in the demo, and you're not going to be able to experience the demo twice unless you reload the game. But essentially that is like you go through there and that's it. Now this is a great example of adding a lot to the end game, because now people can play the game even beyond beating it. You know, there's still so much more to be done. I've got so many zones in there. I really doubt that someone's going to be able to experience everything in one run at it. So I think this is really neat that they can keep wandering around and doing more stuff. Now, since that respawning timer thing to enemies, it made me have to revisit a whole bunch of different zones, and I went back and started refixing this one here. This is actually underneath the castle. I'm going to include this one in the extended demo that I'm working on right now. When you explore the castle, it'll allow you to go pretty much anywhere inside it before the demo's over. And this is one of the little battle scenes that I'm putting together. And it's just got like a whole bunch of rats in it. They're just kind of toxic rats. Pretty typical trope kind of enemies you'd find in early dungeons. So that's kind of the idea here. I'm looking for some new ideas on what I can add to the demo just to have a little bit more combat in it, because right now if I want to extend the demo to include the castle, it does have, I would say, too much conversational stuff and not enough combat. And I think the biggest focus of my game is going to be the combat, and then, you know, followed by the story and that sort of stuff. But I didn't want to overwhelm somebody with too much story, because that is a problem right now that I do believe I have with the castle. It's there's just so much going on, and the way that it's kind of a sandbox feel, I feel like people just want to leave right away and just start killing things. So I'm hoping that this at least gives people a little bit of a break, and it gives them a bit of a story to follow through, right? So I revisited this old dragon scene here. I just had to fix some of the animations. It was something I made like 6 years ago, so it had a few little tiny tweaks I needed to do, and some of the animations just didn't sit right. I also felt that the fire breathing animation and its particle effects just didn't look as good as some of the stuff I've been delivering these days. Particle effects have also, some of the stuff I've purchased on the asset store is, it's nice to piece together some of the little bits and pieces, but I think they also kind of get dated after a little while too. So originally I had this dragon breathing fire and his mouth didn't actually open. So here I am just fixing his jaw up and making it look good. I also did a little bit of painting on his face to make it look a little bit better too. I think he looks really cool now, especially the bottom part of his jaw. I added this kind of like spike to the bottom just to make it look more jagged. Now, the fire-breathing animation, the tail swipe, and that little fire rain thing, they're pretty cool-looking animations. The one there that he shoots up in the air causes these little fire golems to join in on the battle. They kind of rise out of the fire pits. So, a really neat battle that I've put together with this guy here. Maybe some little tweaks I'll do later on, but I'm fine with the way it looks right now. With the dragon fight, I always wanted it to be an optional one, too, where you could befriend the dragon. So I ended up plugging in an adventure quest that allows you to friend the dragon if you have something of his, or you have enough charisma, or whatever it is that you basically trigger that outcome, and basically reap the rewards behind the guy, because he is guarding something that you need. So it is an option that you could do, and you can also just fight him afterwards too if you just want to do that and see what kind of loot table he has. So really interesting way of handling this. And with all those cool changes that we've added, it gives me so much power to make things different for every time you play it, right? Now, at the end of the game, I kind of wanted it to be served after you kill the necromancer, and there to be kind of like this clickable thing. But I also wanted there to be another bad guy afterwards that kind of spawns when you kill him. And along with the necromancer battle, I wanted there to be hordes and hordes of these undead skeletons running around, kind of rising out of the pillars where you see all those bone piles. It was something I always wanted in my big battle, so I went ahead and did that. This is pretty much where I end the devlog, though, because I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't done yet that's kind of half finished. Like even that bad guy, he has 1 health on him, so I basically one-shot him. There's a lot to do with that guy's battle, and there's so much more afterwards. I even plan on having a celebration room when you beat the Necromancer and you pick up the crown here. It ends up, you know, based off your choices, you end up going back to the throne room, which is what you'd see in the demo game. And there will be like a celebration there. There'll be a whole bunch of achievements that you've possibly done. And it'll be one of those scenes that kind of changes based on how you've impacted the game. So if you've helped a certain NPC, they'll be there to celebrate your victory and that sort of thing. So lots of stackable little adventures that you could have done in the game that'll appear there. I got the idea from a really old game called King's Quest. It's I can't remember which version it was, 3 or 4, but essentially when you got married to the princess at the end, there's a whole bunch of people that you could have helped, and I like the idea of that, so I've done my own little version of it, and we'll see how it turns out. I've already got the blueprint set up. I even have the scene all ready because it's obviously a duplicated version, but it'll have so much more into it. And then when you're done celebrating, you can actually leave the throne room and then you're right back into the game. You can just kind of do things all over again. You can come back and kill the Necromancer if you want and do the celebration all over again. It's one of those repeatable quests that I designed earlier. So really fun stuff that I have this all in the works, but that's going to be part of my next devlog, I think, and many other things too. So anyways, guys, I really appreciate that you stuck around this long and listened to the whole thing. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't, and check out my Twitch channel too. I'm trying to be there every Saturday, and sometimes during the week maybe I pop up once in a while. But that's it for this devlog. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Cheers and see you later.